if you leave the good hands, as much as possible, because world is extremely small. And I left companies and I met some the same people somewhere else in different places. They flew in, you do the interview, you go through the whole thing, they put you in the room and they give you assignments. That's all I do. On the weekend, I do finance now. That's the funny part is like when I said it's like I get really passionate about like business behind.
Yeah.
Like even when I see something, anything, I want to understand like how the money work. Even like I buy something and I'm like, the price is this, like how much margin do you think they do? How does it procured? Like how is it produced?
Welcome to the Diaries, guys. Today we're with Amel Chouikh, the head of finance, a special guest at Uber. And we're Zainab's third episode today. And she's excited to get Miss Amel on the podcast. We were having a brief conversation about financial space in both Paris and
comparing the
UAE. So you've gone from ERP systems and integrating ERP systems in Deloitte all the way to heading finance in Uber. And finance is generally a very cutthroat field. It's known to be very cutthroat. How have you sort of navigated through the space? How have you navigated to such heights in the space?
It was not intentional. I never wanted to do finance. Okay. It was not my dream job at all. I grew up in a family where they do filming. Oh. So I was like, okay, this is what I want to do.
That's why you were interested in,
to know their job.
Yeah.
So this is what I was like, okay, that's what I want to do. And then very quickly I realized I didn't have talent. So it's like, okay, maybe I should do something else. And I did a master in entrepreneurship.
Okay.
And I really wanted to open up my own business, to start up my own things. I had a movie club. I had it was all about media. So I had a newspaper. And I was really keen to do that. And then when I graduated, Deloitte came in. We were very close to the school that I was in. It was a very small school. So they came to the movie club that I was running. And after a while, you're building the connection. They're like, oh, we would love to have you to join our company when you graduate. And then at that point, the project that I had, obviously as any wannabe entrepreneur, takes time and it's tough. And I thought, okay, why not? Let me try Deloitte. Let me see what they have. And I got in and I've done it for about a year and a half. And there was a lot of interesting stuff. It's a really great school, but I was not feeling at my best there. And I wanted to try something else.
This is HEC?
That was Deloitte, or you mean?
No, the school.
What school?
So my school was back home. Okay. So in Algeria. So it was a school that was built from, it was we were the third generation on that school.
Okay.
And it was created between France and Algeria. It was a cooperation between the two, with schools from both of the countries' programs. So my program, my entrepreneurship program, was the HEC program that was exported to the country. We had 4 curriculum, and each curriculum was coming from a different French school.
Okay.
Mine was from HEC. And I've done Deloitte for a year, and I'm like, okay, I like it, but it's really not the thing that I feel very strong about.
What was your role at Deloitte again?
So Deloitte, I was doing consulting for financial implementation of system. Okay. So we'd sit with the customer, understand how they operate, and then come up with smart solutions for them to transform.
We have someone in our team who dreads that. Iman is in our team, and she dreads the whole cloud ecosystem because she loves it. Yeah. She loves the money and she loves being a part of it. It's a tough
environment, and the consulting itself, I think it's one of many. But I think the consulting space, you have to if you want to be successful, you have to thrive in that environment because it's extremely competitive. It's really hardworking. It doesn't mean that I was not hard work. I didn't work hard somewhere else, but it was extremely competitive. It's just that it was just not a good fit for me. I knew after a couple of months that it was really not my thing.
Yeah.
And then back then, LinkedIn was at a very early start. And I was like, okay, how can I look elsewhere? How can I try something else? So I just went on LinkedIn and I created a profile. And I feel old when I say that, but it's been it was the early days of LinkedIn. So I opened up my profile. I've tried to make it as attractive as possible, open to work, and see what it gets me. And so I was very looking at the market all the time, seeing if there's any opportunity. And I got an email a text from someone hiring at GE, at General Electric. So she texted me, she's like, hey, we like your profile. We're looking for people from that country specifically with your specific profile to join our programs. Because GE at that time, they were investing a lot in Nigeria and they wanted to grow the pact for the country because they needed later on like finance managers to run the country. So they were building that pipeline. So they reach out and they were like, okay, you have to go through an assessment center. And it's literally like the graduate program. I'm sure you know kind of how it looks, but it was intense, extremely intense program. So you have to go through a whole assessment center, do business case, do case study, like written exams. And then you have to do through 5 interviews as well on top. So like a full day stacked interviews.
Seems quite rigorous.
Yeah. And it's funny enough, it was literally across the street. Like the assessment center, GE is right across the street. So things are like coming back into the
Is this the prometric assessment near the universities? Is that where you...
No, it was in the office, like everything internal. Like they do everything internal. So it's like, it's really an internal master almost. And my English back then was bare minimum. Very bare minimum. But it was a big opportunity and they had to fly me to Dubai. I was living like miles away. I was in Algiers, like just doing my regular job at Deloitte. And they're like, okay, we're going to fly you in. We get you a visa, we get you a flight ticket, a hotel, and you come for the assessment center. And literally you come to Dubai. It was in 2011, 2010. And you come to Dubai, they discovered the city. And I think a lot of people have that wow effect when they land in Dubai. And I was young.
Yes.
And I'm coming for an interview. It was like a big deal.
But they flew you in for an interview?
Yeah, for just the assessment center.
Oh, wow.
Just for the assessment center. So you have, like, the pressure was so high. And my English, extremely basic, basic. Because back home we speak Arabic and French. But English was not a thing. Now it become really like much more prominent. People back home speak now. The young generation speaks. But like at my age, no, like it was like a foreign language that you can use only for holidays. You know, when you travel, you get your way around.
Not a requirement over there. Okay.
No. So I studied like for 2 weeks because I was like, okay, it's in 2 weeks.
You studied English for 2 weeks?
Like I started interview English. Like my resume, every possible question that can come up on my resume, I study it. I've studied just to be able to answer properly. It was intense 2 weeks. It was like full English. Like I wake up with English, I sleep with English. It was all like, and I would record myself to do the interview. I was like, I wanted the job. I really wanted the job. They flew you in, you do the interview, you go through the whole thing. They put you in the room and they give you assignments and they step out and they just look at you. How do you behave with a group of people? So it was very like weird. Overwhelming, yes. But you're like, okay, I have to do it.
Yeah.
And then you're done and they tell you, thank you very much. We'll call you back.
Okay.
And then you fly back home and you wait.
Oh, wow.
That seems like a nightmare.
Awful.
My anxiety would have been off
like
the
the
roof.
longest wait ever.
Wow.
And they called me after like a week or so. Okay. They're like, hey, you got in. It's in like 3 months. You're moving and you're going to live in Dubai for your first job. And still my English was like, it didn't really
not the best.
It was still not the best. So I studied a lot before coming. I resigned from Deloitte and I have to do all the work before, like do the notice period, go through like the final project, handover. It was very intense just to finish because I wanted to leave it a good hand.
Okay.
And one of the advice I would give to anyone going through career change, and I've always done the same. If you leave, always go leave with a good hand as much as possible. Because world is extremely small and I left companies and I met the same people somewhere else in different places later on, even like worldwide, different countries, different places. So it's extremely important
to keep that good relationship when you leave another company. Yeah.
Because you don't know, maybe they call you back at some point. Maybe like those people, like I ended up like when I moved from GE to Microsoft, the CFO of Microsoft I was working with her at GE. It was not on purpose. I ended up working for her. If I left in a bad terms, like you got in and then
you would have had problem at
right?
Microsoft.
So I moved here, spent I've done 2 rotations here. And then I went to London, done again. Like it was like very intense program. So you work full day job, like an analyst. And then you have exams, virtual and physical exams that you have to fly to a class to attend. And you can study on your working hours. So it was like weekend and night.
Okay.
And then you have to reach 80% of all your exams if you want to get
these
to
are
the next
internal
class.
exams?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
So
Extreme.
Wow. Okay.
Now it was intense. I think now they made it a bit lighter. Like the programs that exist are much lighter.
Okay.
But it was extremely intense. I mean, I think I haven't seen the light for like a good, maybe 9 months, like even more. But today, like, it's the best school I've ever had. Like, this is where finance became a thing.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, now I understand finance. I see the benefit of it. Now I'm invested in finance.
Yeah.
And I want to stay a bit longer. So I've did the program for 2 years, and then you finish, you graduate. You either can go on another program, which is like the audit, or you take a job. I was like, okay, I'm done. Enough. I want to stabilize. I want to get a job. So I got my first job in France. So I moved to Paris, and I did my first job.
Were you intentionally looking to move, or you just found this opportunity?
Honestly, it was a lot of it. Like you work hard, keep up your network, and things kind of work out, to be honest. Okay. And again, the job in Paris was like the most random job that it was the most random way that I got that job.
Were you excited to move to Paris?
Yes, when I got the job. Yeah, I mean, definitely. Yeah. But it was not like I didn't have any specific plan.
Okay.
Right. Like I didn't know like I want to move to Paris because at that time. So after that, I've lived in Dubai, lived in London. I was like, okay, like a second. It wasn't like Paris, I want to go to Paris, but it's like, okay, where else I want to settle? Where else like I want to spend the next 2 years? So I was looking around. I was reaching out to my network because you meet a lot of people along the way. When you do your good job in general, you keep good relationship and people are more inclined to help you. So start reaching out, talking to people here and there. And ultimately, like there was one job in Qatar, one job in Turkey, one job back home. And I was like, okay, let's keep exploring. I could see what's out there. And I met a friend. She was in the same program. We were just I was late to that interview. Yeah. And then she was just waiting for me. So by the time I was late, she was just already cleaning her purse. So she had all her stuff on the table. And I got in, I'm like, I'm so sorry. And then I saw a business card, like a GE business card. Yeah. And we were laughing. I'm like, oh, you're fancy now. You have business card. And she's like, no, it's like we went to this GE office. Like I was not going to that office at all. It's like we went there and they're actually looking for program graduates who speaks French. I was like, can I take the business card? So this is how it happened. I reached out to the hiring manager, and we went through a whole process and I got the job. But it was like, I couldn't find it online.
It's like the perfect domino effect.
Exactly. Yeah. So like, that's why, I mean, a lot of the jobs that I got, like LinkedIn, people like, you just put things out there and things come your way. So, I mean, all my jobs, it's been exact the same, like the same recipe that worked across my entire journey.
You were just at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And then it worked.
Yeah. You make sure you work hard, you keep your network, keep connecting with people, keep talking to people, be open as well. Like I have still now friends that I talk to just to check where they are. Like, how is it? Is it good to work in this company, or is it like, where is like, so you can get a sense as well on what are the best places, what are the interesting stuff. Some people will tell you, like, they tell you their stories and they get like super passionate. You're like, okay, this company looks really fun. Yeah. And then especially when you're in one field, you ended up at some point, almost pretty much all the company, you'll have maybe one direct connection and one or two or three direct like connection. You have ways to connect to that company to get a sense on how things are there. Right. So yeah, keep your network alive
very strong.
Is extremely helpful.
How is the company environment shift between Microsoft and Uber?
Because they're both tech companies, right?
Yeah. But very different. I think my biggest shift, my biggest shock was GE to Microsoft. That was my first shock.
Okay.
The good thing is I've always worked in American companies. So in general, the culture itself is quite similar. It's very driven, very like it's a meritocracy. It's like the way to operate are kind of the same. So there's something that wasn't very new. But then going from an industrial company where we were selling turbines and motors, like old fashioned industry, to tech where everybody was talking about cloud. And I got in and, okay, I know finance. I know how to do finance. I know like the job that I was hired for in principle, I should be able to do it. But the business itself, I had no idea, no clue. Like cloud, I understood like super high level.
Yeah.
But again, it was like 6-7 years ago. So like it wasn't that common. Like we were not using it personally. I mean, I was not using it personally. Maybe some people were, but I wasn't. So for me, just conceptually to understand what it was hard. So I had to learn everything from scratch. I spent a lot of time, obviously, asking questions when you get to a new job, like asking, I could use it for like 3-4 months, ask as simple, stupid questions possible. It was still okay. So I asked a lot. I tried to use all, like, again, my network, people that I know, anything that was available. I think now definitely I would go to ChatGPT first. But back then I had just to use the people and the network. And then what I did is I did certification. So I went to Microsoft. So they certify you Azure.
AZ900, AZ500.
Oh, I have that as well. Oh my God.
You've been through it. So you know the pain to get through this.
Yes.
And I had no idea. And then I spent and we had and then the exams, you've done the exam to pass on the exam.
I am going to do it in Jan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you have someone who's through the camera, making sure that you don't you don't move, you don't talk. Like it's very serious.
Even if your phone rings, they might eliminate you from the exam. Yeah.
So it's very serious. But I work on a summer. I spend time studying, and it's like a lot of study. If you've been through it, you know how technical and deep it can get. So I spend a lot of time trying to understand the business, so that I can do a good job.
Right.
At least I can perform.
And as a finance professional, you still needed to go through all this.
All the tech.
I think honestly, you can survive if you don't know the technicalities. They can survive if you don't know the technicalities. But if you really want to do a good job. For me, finance is just like, okay, you speak a language, you speak English, right? You speak, for me, it's the language of business.
Yeah.
If I don't get the business, I'm not going to be useful. Like I can do the number, I can run numbers. Yes. I can run numbers. I can pull the data. I can put it together. I can make you a nice dash.
Yeah.
But if I don't understand what's behind,
you don't know what numbers to add and how to navigate.
You drag around, you stay around, but you never progress.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So that's why for me, that's the first thing I do.
So you had to build the fundamentals of the company.
Yeah.
It's like basically doing fundamental analysis on the stock. But as a head of finance, you had to, in Microsoft, were you also head of finance?
Yeah.
Okay.
But for the business, for 2 business units.
Okay.
So in France, for Microsoft France, it was, they were selling support. So you get your license, you buy a support contract with it.
Yeah.
That was the business that I was serving.
Yeah.
And then you want to transform as a company, you want to go through a transformation journey using the Microsoft tools. Then you have a team who sell you that and go and execute the transformation. That was the 2 business unit that I was serving. So I had to understand.
So you had to know what you were talking about.
You've worked every side. Like you've had to learn every side of what you were handling, right?
Yeah. Because you have a lot of smart people in front of you. And you need to understand the language.
You want to stay
the thing
on
is,
the same,
smart people don't actually listen to you if you're if you don't understand what's going on.
Totally.
Right?
And that's what makes a difference between a finance. Like if you want to be successful in finance, because I can go to them and I'm like, hey, you overspend.
But if they don't think you're competent enough to know the business.
+10 and +6, they can tell you whatever they want, especially in tech. They can drone you under jargon and you have no idea. You're like, okay. Noted. Thank you. Right. So if you don't understand, and it's not like for me, finance, you don't just control, right? There is a piece of control, obviously, because you want to keep the company out of risk. But the main job for me, finance, is to help the business grow. That's where we need to be. We're there to partner. We're there to support. We're an enabling function. We're there to help the business grow in a healthy way. So if I don't understand it, there's no way I can help. You're the catalyst. I can't help if I don't understand it, right? So that was critical. So for me, anytime I take a new job, that's what I do. At GE, I would go to factories, spend time, outside of the job itself, I just go to the factory and spend time, see the inventory, how it goes, spend time with the line of production to understand. Then I can understand it in the numbers later. Then things will make sense. At the beginning, nothing makes sense. You're like, okay, the certification, the cloud training, I didn't get it. I was like, okay, let me learn the technicality. I don't know what it means, but things
got into place once you
later. Things make sense. At some point, they will make sense.
And once you get into the conversations with people you're working with, eventually
and you build up on it. You start understanding. People understand that you understand, so the conversation can get deeper, right? Where it's not just the first layer,
surface level.
I wanted to ask you about. Recently, I read the news that the CFO of Uber thinks the stock is undervalued. So
It is.
Okay, yeah. So can you explain that to me? Because I don't understand it, right?
Coming from a finance background, I understand what an intrinsic value of a company
because they bought back like 1.5 billion worth of stocks, but then the CFO says it's undervalued. So what does that mean?
Let's say, if you think about, if I want to simplify it, if you look at a stock market, the value of a stock market, the market will measure it on the financial health of it. Does it make money?
Okay.
Is it growing?
Okay.
Does it have enough cash flow? And depending on the industry, right? Like whatever industry you are, if it's an industry that is very old and very mature, then we'd expect you to do maybe 2% year-over-year growth. And it's good enough because you're a mature industry. Like you're building airplane, for example, like you're not expecting you to do 200 plus next year, right? Like it's a mature business and you're expecting steady growth, but we expect you to be profitable. If you don't grow fast, you need to make money. But the market is okay for you to grow faster while investing more, right? Because you need to grow. So it really depends on like market expectation on how they see you from outside. And they look at a couple of things. They look at, as I said, like your financial health. And then they look at as well, a bit of the non-qualitative element to it is the industry, the geopolitical impact, the policy impact, a bit of the future state as well. Today, a lot of the stock is impacted by autonomous vehicle because the autonomous vehicle will disrupt the mobility market. And then the question now, is Uber going to be successful in that world or not? With all the news that are happening with Tesla getting into the space as well. And
the whole EV market getting...
So it's a space that is very unpredictable as well, right? Like any news that comes in have a direct impact on the stock. Yeah. Interestingly, the Uber stock I think that's the comment we're coming from. It's understated because financials are good. We start making money. It's healthy. We're growing. Like the company itself is solid. If you compare it to any other company on its peer, like not doing the same thing, but on a mature industry or like a normal industry, we would say, yeah, that is a pretty strong company. But then everything that is a bit of the irrational, not really the irrational, but like how do you predict the future around autonomous vehicle? That's why they're creating a bit of the hype. So you have like those
that speaks to the recent We Ride partnerships you guys had and in Abu Dhabi. Mm-hmm. So does that also affect the stock price? Because this is Uber Middle East and Africa. Whereas does that affect the NYSE stock price? And how so?
I would say anything that happens at the company and in general, not just Uber, right? Any company in the world if it's listed, a publicly listed company, anything that happened in general would affect in some shape or form, positively or negatively, right? So, and then depending on the size, right, of like, where do you sit yourself? Is it, if it's something happening in a market that represents maybe 1% of your portfolio, probably the impact is pretty small. Yeah. The market reacts on big things. There is some rational to it and there is some irrational as well to it. I've seen in the past companies who lose a lot of their stock because there was maybe a bribery that happened in a tiny, small little office, like far from like the HQ and really, really small elements that might really have a massive impact on the stock, right? So that's why a global company needs to have their processes everywhere the same, robust the same, because anything that happens sometimes somewhere could have an impact.
Like the smallest thing could spark the stock prices.
There shouldn't be loopholes in financial reporting, basically. There shouldn't be potholes in the reporting of...
like the policies and the structures.
Yeah. Any sort of... Everything should be compliant with what's happening in the bigger picture. And if it doesn't, and there's news about it, it's going to affect the stock.
So the market, if I wanted to simplify it as well, the market reacts
to the demand and supply,
to how well you control your company. The market is okay. If you tell him we're declining, he's expected, you'll see your stock going down because, okay, you're declining. There's a good reason. The market generally react on a couple of things. Is your story, like where are you leading? React as well on what you said you're going to do. Did you deliver it or not? And that's why finance is super important because you forecast. Mm-hmm. Is your forecast accurate? Are you getting to
the results
result that you said?
Yeah.
And it's not just a finance number. It tells you, do you control the company or not? These are surprises that you didn't see. So meaning there are gaps, right? Okay. So it's a trust relationship. It's
the risk management
right? It's a trust relationship. We want to trust that the company is in good hand because you told us you're going to do A and you did A. We're going to celebrate you. But if it's the other way around, we're going to penalize you. That in general, but then you'll have this layer of everything, this new world where you have innovation and so on, that there is a lot of unpredictability, a lot of unknown. So it creates a lot of the hype or the fluctuation that comes with it. But I think long term, for sure, things will stabilize.
There's a lot of sustainable implementations. I know sustainability is become a huge buzzword in this day and age. And for the next 10 years, it's going to be a huge buzzword. But how does the implementation of EVs and AVs going to affect sustainability and sustainable finance in Uber?
So I think, again, the sustainability at its large, like it's a huge ecosystem. It's like everybody, it's you, me, like how do we consume?
Yes.
How do we operate? Where do we get our energy from? Like it's really on us. And it's on a lot of companies. It's the regulators. So there's a lot of people, stakeholders involved in the process. It's literally everyone, right?
Yeah.
Like it really touched everyone. So every company is responsible, in my opinion, to do better on the things that they can control and then help the ecosystem to get there as well. So for us, what is possible is to switch diesel car, even the non-diesel car, to really move to the electrification, right? Like to have 100% EV cars on the platform. So that's a goal that we have at a company globally.
By 2026,
yes.
I think you've promised 25% of the funds will be EV.
So we did. So every country, as I said, has its own way to execute things, right? In France, we have a very different approach. In the UK, we have a very different approach on how we achieve that target of switching our fleet to electrical cars. UAE is different, right? So UAE, we're beating our expectations and we're above it. You've seen it. I think if you order Uber, you probably, one chance out of 3, you will get a Tesla or an electrical car. So we're pushing, but then you can't be alone in it, right? Like you have to have the infrastructure that goes with it. You have to have charging station. You have to have the car that makes sense financially as well for the drivers, right? So he can still make a living and then you can still be competitive so that the trip still is not extremely expensive, right? And people can still afford it. So you have to solve for profitability on one side and then that the driver can as well, financially still make sense. And then the infrastructure needs to be there. Like he needs to be able to charge it. Where does he charge? Does he charge in the morning? So you need infrastructure as well in place. And I think, UAE is ahead of the curve in terms of adoption. There are the Nordics that are amazing as well in that sense. Like they are really pushing the agenda really far. I think they're probably, I don't want to throw numbers. They are at a high scale of adoption. There are markets as well where you have limitation as well, right? Like market that are economical boundaries that you can't reach maybe a certain number because you don't have, the cars are very much more expensive than the cars that are on the market that are secondhand. Maybe the drivers use secondhand that they got for 5-6 years as well. And they're not ready because the trip is $3. They can't afford an electrical car, or maybe there's no charging station in that area, right? So I think everybody, everyone, if I think about Microsoft on the cloud, they were pushing to get data centers under the water. Now it's effective to reduce the consumptions of electricity and so on, the heating, they need to cool down the
entire system,
the system. So everybody has to play a role. And I think that's why you said it's a buzzword and it's good. It's good that everybody's talking about it because it's extremely important that everybody do something about it. I think everyone needs to at least make an effort in that sense for whatever we can. And I think companies as well, a lot of them are trying as well to do.
It's a systemic problem, right? And it needs to blossom bottom up where people have to start shifting the way they think. And the only way that's going to work if is a buzzword and if it's a famous thing that people talk about. And I think, that's absolutely true. It is valid that it's a buzzword.
Would Uber ever merge with an EV company, or is that something planned in the future?
I think a lot of the companies, and I really don't know what could happen in the future. It's very unknown, right? But I think what I've seen successfully doing, Uber, what it's been successfully doing in the past couple of years that makes it now in a strong position is really focusing on its core.
Focusing on
its core, what they know how to do, and they try to do it as good as they can.
Okay.
I like the example of as well, and I'm just give you examples on other companies as well, Microsoft. I think what they were saying, for example, on their mantra as well, hey, we want to empower everyone in the world to do better. And they said, we don't want to sell
50 different things, which is all half-assed.
We want to do one thing. If we are able to do
the
one
best,
thing
and
do
be
it
the
best way, and we focus on our core, this is where we're going to stay.
So focusing on a niche.
Yeah. And not necessarily on the niche, but at least on your mission. Like, what are you good at? And then you could do a couple of things, right? But around it, does it still serve your core? I think as a company, I've seen, like in many companies, I've seen the successful one. This is how they survive. And even personally, right? Like sometimes they tell you, there's, 10 skills, and maybe you're good at, you have really 3 that you're very strong, 2 you're good, and then maybe 5 that you need to work on. Do I want to spend my time on trying to get all the 5 or the 10, like average level? Or maybe I want to push to the 3 to be really at my best, even further. The good, maybe like really strengthen them. And the bad one, maybe pick the one that has an impact, like the one that low impact, like
there's no point wasting time.
There's no point wasting it. I think the companies who are able as well to do that are like,
more successful in the
much
future.
more successful.
Interesting. Yeah. Talking about skill sets, since you've gone from consulting to tech to finance, what is one major skill set that you focused on and grown?
Finance is the same, pretty much the same, like the logic of finance, the logic of how you, you want to forecast, you want to plan, you want to know what's going ahead, you want to make sure that you're rational on your spend, that you're pushing for growth, that you're looking at risk, you're looking at opportunities. The mindset is still the same everywhere.
Okay.
I think the piece that we talked about earlier is understanding the business. I think that it was key. That is the big difference. I think the only difference is the business that you're serving.
Okay.
Because managing performance, if I compare what I was doing at GE or Microsoft or Uber, it's the same thing. Every Monday we look at KPIs, and then we see how we've been doing.
Hit the targets.
So are we progressing? Are we not? Are we behind? What do we need to do? The logic is the same. KPIs are very different. The way we look at it, extremely different, right? So when you're in a sales organization, you look at your pipe. Did I contact, what am I, which stage am I? Did I close the deal? Am I negotiating? Am I at the final stage? Like, where do I sit? Or in Uber, we look at performance of last week on the platform. Are we behind our forecast? Is we growing? Are we declining? Was there like a rainy day that things completely slow down? So the content is different. The logic, I would say.
So like your base layers, finance, it's always the same, and then you grow on it.
Yeah. You were talking about the core of the business, and I wanted to understand the core of the Uber business. And you said finance is a language for business, right? So how would you define Uber's core business mission in terms of finance, in a financial lens? In a financial lens. Uber as a whole, we have 3 main business, right? Like you have the mobility, you have the delivery, and you have the freight. And the logic is to move people and things for the better. Like we want to make sure that people are able to move and to be able to complete things in an easy and efficient way, right? I would say if I have to look at the finance angle to it, is how do I make sure that I invest in the right place and the right people, making sure that the drivers and even like anyone on the platform earn enough and they can make good living and it makes sense for them, because the platform is really a place for millions of people to make living, right? It's how it was built. That's the logic, is to make sure that the drivers are first and they are able to make enough living while we service a product as well to the market. For me, finance, if we're successful to find that right balance between, on one side of the marketplace, people are earning enough, and on the other side of the marketplace, people are finding the service at the quality they expect in general. And then the company, this is literally what is the winning situation? Yeah. Obviously, being profitable and be able to reinvest on the innovation. And the only way you can reinvest as well on the next things to come is to have enough earnings and make enough profit to be able to reinvest it, to do buyback and to invest on partners as well that are innovative, that they want to maybe build the next innovative things, the next new car, because we have invested a lot as well on different companies across the globe to be able to do it. You manage a $2 billion portfolio.
Yeah, I was going to
ask. I want you to explain that in finance terms to the audience, what that means, managing a $2 billion portfolio under Uber's umbrella.
I do manage now $4 billion.
Okay.
Because I cover Middle East, Africa, and France as well. So basically, as a business, this is the volume we make on a yearly basis. This is the volume that are happening on the platform across a year, across the entire region, all the countries together. So you create revenue.
This is the revenue
This is we call it the gross booking.
Okay.
Which is, I don't know, you take a trip from here to downtown, maybe it's 50 dirham. So that's the aggregation of those trips that are happening on the platform. This is the amount of gross booking that you make. And then what you manage is that obviously we only take a commission. So the driver takes the majority of it and we only take the commission, right?
How much is the commission?
Depend on the market, but in general, average is 25%.
Okay.
And then you manage as well your marketplace, right? Like you want to make sure that marketplace works. If your driver are not maybe within that week or that period, you spend a lot of incentives on both sides to make sure that there is traction and people are using it. You might receive the promo one day, right? And that's what happens after. So you get all the promo that you manage and then you have your net revenue.
Okay.
This is your net revenue. And then from your net revenue to EBITDA, which is the earning before tax and income.
Yeah.
So, and it's a metric that is not really it's not the pure finance. Like it's not the accounting will not look at it that way. It's not really what happened ultimately at the end in your books, but it's a way to look at the business that you can manage within your business partners.
Okay.
Things that they can control because you can want to manage their performance. So this is how you start looking at the business. And then taxes and everything, you have different teams who look at it. I don't know, someone who's sitting on the operation might not have an impact on it. So that's why we want to remove the noises in general from the business to make sure that we measure the business on its performance. And then the rest is managed a bit separately. And then you have all your costs, right? Like your variable, your direct cost, your indirect cost, your base, or whatever. Like every place has a different view. So it gets you to your final margin. And that's what we measure. That's what we control. We try to optimize. We try to push the growth harder. We invest a lot as well. And we want to make sure that we invest it in the right place. What is the most efficient? What it makes more sense. And then we try to optimize as well our costs to make sure we don't overspend and we spend it again in the right place, right people, to make sure that ultimately we generate some excess to be able to invest in the company.
So we were talking about how Uber is undervalued. Why would EBITDA be looked at when Uber's stock is undervalued?
And it's a stock market, right? Like they have to have a metrics that makes sense for all companies to be able to measure them against each other.
Yeah.
Right. So you have places, if I think about taxes, like maybe taxes for one industry is going to be very different than the other one, right? Yeah. So you don't want to penalize the businesses if you want ultimately in a market, because you need something that is a bit common to all companies to be able to measure them or make sense of them. Like, do I want to invest here? Do I want to invest there? EBITDA is the agreed metrics that makes the most sense for all companies to look at, right? So that's why I said, like, remove a bit of the noise on, do I have loans? Do I invest it in capital? Like, am I heavy on CapEx? Like, what is the type of business I'm at? Yeah. EBITDA allows you to kind of normalize all the businesses and to be looked at the same way. And it's very focused on operations. Let's say you take this, like the podcast, if you were to make money, because there's some podcasts who make money out of it, right?
That's the plan.
And that's what I wish for. But the way you would look at EBITDA is, okay, is this podcast profitable? Did it generated profits, okay, right? I'm not going to look at, okay, maybe all the setup, the investment that you've done in the past.
It doesn't look at debt.
It removes all of those.
And that's, that's what the crux of it is, because it doesn't look at debt, and debt is also a tool sometimes that can be used for...
but like the financial market could look at everything, right?
Yeah.
EBITDA is one metric.
Yeah.
But they look at the financial statement, they look at the free cash flow. Free cash flow is extremely important because that's ultimately, if you have a grocery, for example, or you just, even at home, like if you have a peanut at home, do you have money in your pockets to be able to sustain yourself tomorrow and buy some food? So the market don't look at EBITDA only. Yeah. They look at...
Free cash flow is revenue?
Free cash flow is whatever you have left in your pockets in a company bank account after
all the expenses. Okay.
After absolutely everything.
Okay.
So that tells you as well, like, are you in debt? Are you negative? Like, what is your situation?
What is retained after everything has gone out of the...
You paid people, you paid your suppliers, you paid the banks, you paid pretty much everyone. And what is left that you can really reinvest?
I'm getting flashbacks of my degree.
What do you do apart from just finance?
That's all I do on the weekend. I do finance now. No, I mean, that's the funny part is like when I said it's like I get really passionate about like business behind.
Yeah.
Like even when I see something, anything, I want to understand like how the money work.
Okay. Yeah.
Like even like I buy something and I'm like, the price is this. Like how much margin do you think they do? How does it procured? Like how is it produced?
Yeah.
Where is it coming from? Does it make sense? They make money, don't make money. And today's world as well, like there's a lot of tech companies that are hyping every time I hear about companies hyping.
Quantum computing.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, how does it make money?
Yeah.
Like, how does it work? Is it profitable? Is not profitable? So yeah, I mean that's kind of gets into a bit of my personal life, but it's not the only thing that I do.
So you like water sports?
I love water sports. I do diving. So now I find my spot in Fujairah. I'll go diving.
Okay.
That's
really that's a new place right now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very cool. I love diving. I love traveling. So whenever I can.
Does it irk you when there's a lot of climate change happening and you love diving and it messes up the whole
Yeah, of course. Like this is where things come concrete, right? Like it's very abstract when you think about climate change and sustainability and you're like, oh, those buzzwords, whatever. And then you go to a beach and then you go underwater and then you're places where you used to see things and now it's like all gray and dark and then bottles underwater. And the water, especially the water from the top, it looks amazing. It's like it never changed, right? Like it's still like centuries of the same water, pretty much. But you dive in and then you realize, okay.
And then that's when you see the damages.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Amel, for coming to the podcast.
We'd love to have you as a guest one more time, hopefully. You know, if your time permits.
If he calls you beforehand.
Yeah, if he calls you
on time.
If he calls you on time. Yeah.